Good morning everyone and welcome to our sunrise safari on a beautiful day. It is warm, it is bright, the sun is out and there are no clouds, and as you could see there was a yellow-billed kite that was departing the scene as well. My name is Tristan and on camera today I've got Vian the Wildebeest, and we are going to be with you for the next 3 hours as we negotiate the wonders and beauty of the African wilderness. And that means that you guys can all ask any questions that you like on #SafariLive on Twitter or on the YouTube chat should you want to. Now the plan for the morning, well, we weren't really 100% sure, but we were sitting here just now gazing at the sunrise as we were trying to battle the gremlins for a few seconds, and we heard a leopard starting to rasp, and it sounds like it's calling somewhere down towards the Mulawati, maybe Chelapan area. It also didn't sound very deep, and so I think it might be Tundi that's busy calling down there. So we're going to go and just have a little look around and see, maybe we get lucky and we find the culprit that's making the noise. The sun is already quite high at the moment, and so we're going to try and see if we can find something. There is also some sort of sign of, well, audio for a lion at one point. I didn't hear it very clearly. Megan says she thought she heard it. I thought I heard it, but I couldn't get a clear direction. Now the lions themselves, the rest of the pride, or the Angama pride and some of the Birminghams, unfortunately are in the west, and I don't think we're going to see them for probably the next few days. And the reason being is that they've managed to catch themselves a giraffe. Now I don't know how big the giraffe is. I don't know how much of the giraffe is still left, but if it is a giraffe that they killed yesterday, and it is a big one, that is definitely a few days worth of food. And while it's a bit sad because it means we're not going to see too much of the Angama pride over the next little bit, the good thing is that they all needed a really big decent meal, and so I'm happy that the Angamas have found some sort of big food source. It really is going to go well for them, and hopefully that means that the little cubs are going to be fattening up as well and still surviving. It'll be interesting actually to know where those cubs are at the moment. There's been no real sign of them since I've been back. In fact, I don't think I've seen a lion track in the week that I've been back at work, so hopefully we will see some sort of sign of the lions coming back for those of you that are the big lion fans. As for the hyena den, well, we'll probably see how we go with the leopards. If nothing on them, then we'll probably head towards hyena den. I know Aubrey is actually heading towards the den now, and so we'll get an update fairly shortly as to whether the hyenas are around. So there's the kind of plans for the morning. There's also should be some good birds around, given that it's a nice warm morning. Hopefully there'll be quite a few. There's been a nice dawn chorus already this morning. I heard some of the greater striped swallows. There's a big bird of prey as we speak right now. Now this is the largest bird of prey that we get in here, and it's on our right hand side sitting atop this marula, and I would surmise and suspect that this martial eagle is the same individual that we had with the duiker kill a few weeks ago. So for those of you who weren't watching at that stage, we had a martial eagle that had killed a baby duiker and was not far from where we're seeing this particular individual at the moment. But how beautiful is that in the golden morning light, this martial eagle, the biggest eagle that we see out here. It is massive. It's got big bulky wings and a wingspan that's about 2.5 meters, so it's a really big bird of prey. And as I was saying and alluding to just now, is that they will go after rather large prey items. So, you know, we think that even leopards are hunting things like steenbok and duiker, and so these guys are doing the exact same thing, and they do that by coming down from these treetops and swooping in, and they'll come down with such force and such big talons that when they hit these prey animals like scrub hares and these small mammals, they're actually hitting with such force that it almost breaks their spine immediately and disables that animal, and they're then able to fly off with it up into a tree and feed on it. So it is an amazing specimen, and they are not birds that we see that commonly. I mean, they are around, and we do see this particular individual, but it seems as though there's not as many as there used to be. I remember when I was a kid in this area, we used to see martial eagles all over the place, but nowadays it's very seldom that we actually see them consistently. There is one pair that I know of outside of this individual that we see here that is in the western side, so it's just south of the Arethusa airstrip is where they nest, and that was an amazing experience to watch them nesting, because they raised a chick there when I used to work at Simambili, and that chick, it was interesting just to see what they brought back to the nest. And eventually the chick got so used to us, because we used to go to the nest almost every day, that it would sit right next to the road, and you could park within about 2-3 meters of it and watch this bird go about its business. And we saw it with all kinds of different prey animals, from rabbits, scrub hares, to monitor lizards, to guinea fowl, and all kinds of other different animals. Right, well, I'm going to carry on and go and see if I can find this calling leopard, and so while I do that, I'm not the only one out here this morning. There is also Miss Tayla McCurdy, who's raring to go, and I believe she's got a baby animal of her own.
everybody. Isn't this an absolutely beautiful scene filled with all sorts of cuteness? They definitely are some of the most adorable little antelope, the baby Topi. And they're all playing about. They are so precious. But there's a bit of a haze, as you can see. The sun is out and there's not a cloud in the sky. The balloons are up, drifting about. Hopefully going to see as many exciting things that I saw yesterday. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Sebastian, and we're hopefully going to find all sorts of fun and exciting things for you out here. Now remember, this is live, this is interactive, this is happening right now, so hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can chat to us via the YouTube chat. So Tristan, you heard lots of sounds last night, which was quite cool. Hopefully you get to find some of those animals. I'm rolling forward. I'm not actually going to start the car because I want to have a look at these little Topi. They are precious. Look at them. Oh, they're amazing. Now, there's actually lots and lots of animals around on the, well, just below the escarpment this morning. The wind is also just starting to pick up. We had a fairly quiet night, and it seems as though one of the mothers has been given the duty of babysitter. And she's looking after all the youngsters, so they're not all hers. And like what we see with children is that children will find other children and play with children, and that's exactly what these youngsters have done. Although they're learning to groom themselves, it seems as though what is biting your little bottom? Is it a fly? Is it a bee? Shame. They're all very itchy. It could be just the grass too. I'm allergic to grass, and I know that some animals can get allergies from grass. Maybe they're just a little bit on the sensitive side because they're all very scratchy at the moment. Isn't that so sweet? Now, they're not very old. I would put them between a few days and a week old. They can move around. They'll probably be able to run. I mean, they stand up fairly quickly after they've been born, and it only takes them an hour or so before they're sprinting away, testing out their little legs. But you can see they're still teeny tiny. That one actually looked a little bit wobbly still. Maybe only a couple of days old. But that umbilical cord seems to be drying out quite quickly. And before you know it, these little ones would have sprouted into big Topi too. They grow so quickly. Yes, something's bothering you on the back of your leg. Sorry, little one. Now, there was a comment from James, and James, you were wondering if I was going to tell you about my adventures on the balloon trip yesterday. I most certainly will, but I'm going to tell you in snippets throughout the entire show. I won't bore you all at once, but it honestly was a breathtaking experience. I don't know what words I can use to describe it. It was something like I've obviously never experienced it before. It was peaceful, obviously not peaceful when the flames went on, and then it was a bit loud, but otherwise it was just when you're floating silently. It was the most amazing thing, and just to see the animals' reaction to the balloon was quite interesting. Now, we flew over some lions, didn't even care. They looked up at us. They just went like this. They just stared at us, didn't move. Zebra didn't like us. The hippos didn't like us at all. They all seemed to scatter, and we were quite high above them too. We weren't flying low down to the animals that didn't enjoy us at all, but they just weren't comfortable with the balloon, which I thought is unusual because we've seen how animals habituate quite easily to the cars. I thought, the amount of years that they've been doing hot air balloon safaris in this area, they would have been slightly more comfortable with it, but that's okay. Maybe it just gives them a fright. But let's carry on. I'll plan for this morning, and like I said, I'll keep throwing in snippets of my experience as we go along, as we're going to head down towards the Olololo gate and probably hit the tree line of the Mara River in the east, and then go all the way along and then come back this way. We'll try and see if we can find sorry Seb, forgot there was a ditch there. We'll hopefully find some lions. I'd like to do a little bit of birding this morning, perhaps. It'll be quite nice. Right, and well, speaking of birds, it seems as though someone must have heard me from across the valley. Scott has found the first one.
Yes, I'm not too far away from Tayla, but I certainly didn't hear what you were chatting about exactly with her. As you can see, we found one of our resident secretary birds. It's stopped looking for food and is now doing some preening, and I guess it's possibly also trying to kind of just ruffle its feathers a little bit. It's been a damp, dewy evening. It's the first morning we've woken up with dew. Ooh, what's that flying off in the background? Can you believe it? Oh, it's another one. How beautiful is that? We seldom get to show you them flying. Wonderful. Well done, Ferg. I love the way they land. Look at that. Oof, it almost crashed, it looked like, into the bush. Jeez. Well, good start to the morning. My name's Scott. I'm teamed up with Ferg on camera, and as I'm sure you've already gathered by spending some time with Tayla, it is another beautiful Mara morning. Brent is also out. He's ahead of us. Tayla's behind me. I'm not too sure what she's planning. Brent quite selfishly said that he was going to only decide where he would like to go once he got to the bottom of our driveway, and he says he had those privileges because he was the first down the hill. So I'm still waiting to find out what Brent is going to do, and we're going to continue south. I'm thinking of maybe spending time with the Sausage Tree Pride if we can find them, or just scratch around for anything interesting. Basically, it's such an incredible wilderness that you would have to try to avoid things in order to not find anything interesting out here. Yesterday I had the most fascinating afternoon out. We came across a few bizarre sightings, one of which was a poor zebra that had been disemboweled by a crocodile as it crossed the Mara River. And it made it probably 500 meters away from the river, where we found it just flapping on the side of the road. It took us a while to work out what had happened, because we saw this poor zebra with its stomach hanging out, and there was no predators to be seen, but we noticed then that it was quite wet, and the only likely kind of explanation would have been a crocodile attack. Very, very good. Well, like I said, I'm not too sure what I'm looking for this morning, but at least one of us are, and that's Tristan. He is prowling for wild dogs, and I hope more than anything that he manages to find them. I think it's been quite some time since we've actually been able to show you any wild dogs. So why don't you get an update from him and see what his plan of attack is.
Well, unfortunately we've got a few gremlins, so I'm going to have to sit dead still and not move at all. But the good news is that there has been some dogs spotted. So some of the wild dogs have been spotted on the southern side of Djuma, well, right on the southern boundaries. Now, they could go either way. It sounds like they're flirting going southwards, and then they come north a little bit, and then they go south again. So we're just heading down towards Twin Dams, where we're going to stand by and just see which way they actually end up going. While we're going on in this direction, we've also been looking for any signs of tracks for Hyena. Nothing that we can see coming out on Twin Dams side, so I think he must have headed more towards Treehouse in that area. But it's a good place just to sit and listen where we are now. We're right up against the Mulawati. We're just between Chelapan and Twin Dams at the moment. And so hopefully from here we might hear this leopard call once again. The problem is that the sun is really quite high now. And so leopards generally, and lions, they generally don't call really too much after that sun has risen. There's maybe one or two calls that they'll let out just after the sun rises. Particularly on a warm day like we have today. It's going to get very hot, and so these guys, the period of activity is going to be far less this morning than we would see on a cooler day. So it's a good time to listen, but I think the sun maybe is a little bit too high, and that last call that we heard was probably the last one for that particularly individual that was making a noise. Right, now I'm going to head more towards Twin Dams and just to try and see if there isn't any sign of anything there while I wait for an update on these wild dogs. But it sounds like Brent, who I'm sure is probably a little bit jealous about the dogs, has found something of his own.
Morning, 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 and welcome for the third time to the magical Mara. My name is Brent Smith. I have the Batman, Craig, on camera. And we're on a mission again. I am in a missioning mood. We are now heading down to the southwest and seeing if we can find the big sausage pride. I think we're going to actually have to give another name at some point. What are you looking at, Topi? What are you looking at, Topi? Oh, traffic jam, and let them go past. And Topi is staring in this general direction, not sure what it's seen. Remember, this is 100% live from the Masai Mara in Kenya, but I have seen a pretty bird. And if you do have any questions for us, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. There we go, on top of the Balanites, Craig. It is that black-breasted snake eagle warming up after quite a chilly night last night, catching some beautiful morning sun. Now, our plan, as I said, is to go look for the big sausage pride, and I'm always on the search for the new den sites for either of Kenya's daughters. Well, while we leave that snake eagle to sun himself, you can see there's a bit of a breeze blowing his feathers up there. Pretty bird. Now, Philip is wondering what roles did the different animals play in African folklore? Well, it depends, Philip. A lot of different cultures have their own sort of unique take on the different animals. But there are certain animals that with the folklore stays almost the same. Now, one of those is, of course, the hyena. The hyena is considered to be, generally from a superstitious point of view, an evil animal. And in most of Africa, there are parts where hyenas are revered, like Ethiopia and South Sudan. But mostly they're considered to be bad creatures, witches' pets. And it's the African equivalent of a broomstick. The witches will get about by riding on hyenas at night. And also can use hyenas to do nefarious deeds, like commit murder. And I'm trying to think of others that are quite widespread throughout African folklore. Of course, how silly of me. One of the most widespread ones is the honey guides. Now, the honey guides are a little bird that will lead human beings, honey badgers, to beehives, and you raid them. And it's said if you don't leave a big piece of the honeycomb for the honey guide. Now, the honey guide is obviously not eating the honey, it's eating the bee larvae within the comb. You will be led to something very, very bad. And most cultures in the savannah, you'll be led to either a black mamba or a man-eating lion. In some of the Central African cultures in the rainforest, you will be led to a man-eating crocodile or a venomous snake. So those are two that really sort of transpire throughout Africa. There are obviously different versions slightly of it. And another one is that the mischievous hare or the scrub hare is very clever and very naughty, and will often play tricks on the other animals, such as the lions and the elephants. And the hare stories are generally meant to say that size isn't everything. Intelligence is more important than how big and strong you are. Okay, so I'm going to keep heading south. I'm looking for the large sausage tree pride and hopefully one of the two female cheetahs with cubs. So while I jet south, let's go to Tayla, who's taking it a little more leisurely somewhere in my dust.
We're taking a leisure. That's not what we're doing. Oh my goodness, this is going to be fantastic when I can't even get words out. You know, it's bumbling. We are heading to the river, like I said earlier. I'm hopefully going to show Sebastian some more of the Mara River. He's just seen little pockets here and there. So, I haven't seen anything else just yet. That's right, they're just struggling to hear comms at the moment. It keeps coming and going. It might just be the signal that we're in. But I think the question was something along the lines of when is the best time to come on safari in the Mara. Well, it just depends, I suppose. If you want to get wet, come in the rainy season. No, you don't want to come here in the rainy season. It's a nightmare. You bring your boat, your flippers, your snorkel, and your goggles, because that's what you'll need to get around. I mean, you've just seen some of the little downpours we've had and how it wets everything on the ground. So I would say the best time to come in the Mara is come when the migration sort of starts. So I'd say around anywhere from between July and November. I would say maybe even before November, October. Obviously the migration finished a lot earlier than it normally does. But that's why everybody comes to the Mara. Although the game viewing is still exceptionally good when the migration is not on. Then you've just got other challenges, like you've got to try and deal with the rain, which is not very pleasant. And a lot of the guides don't go out when it starts pouring with rain. Everybody stays in the lodges because the roads do get closed here. So that's just something to keep in mind. And now we're going to actually go past, I'm just deciding if we're going to go past the airstrip or not. Try and get as far to the east as we can. Might see some balloons flying around too. Now, love my Charlie face. You're wondering if the wildebeest have returned yet? No, they haven't. Well, at least not in the triangle. I haven't been across the river. I'm heading across the river this afternoon. I'm very excited. So I'm going to go out early and I'm going to do my absolute favorite route. I cannot wait from the Purungut Bridge and hug the Mara River and do like a big circuit. It's so pretty down there, and find this one massive clan of hyenas that I really enjoy watching, and I'm going to try and follow them one night too. That would be quite cool. So no, they haven't, but I believe they did. Some of them did cross the Sand River, and then they're back in the reserve side. I just want to have a look at, because sometimes there's some really cool birds. Not always though, on this little bridge. Not this morning, perhaps it's a bit earlier. Right, Tristan is racing about. He's in 5th gear. He's chasing after something. I'm not going to tell you what. Let's go back across to him.
Well, I'm not racing anywhere at the moment. As you can see, I'm coasting along as slowly can be, and that's because the wild dogs are just south of the boundary now. They've actually killed a little baby Nyala. They finished with it, that they're going to start coming northward. I'm pretty sure from there we'll get a direction. I was just an off chance that they might come north. Whenever it's a boundary, you kind of have a now be able to.
Hey everyone, I'm not sure what just happened there. I was telling Sebastian about how to get to the Chitwa airstrip in case he... I'm confused. Please explain what's going on. So are we live? Are we not live? Are we on Teklu? I think we just need to be a bit clearer about what's going on. Sorry guys all about that. The gremlins are nasty creatures, aren't they? They seem to be jumping into the system left, right and centre. In case you did hear me mumbling about to Sebastian, we were just talking about how to get to the airstrip. So Seb actually hasn't been to this corner of the triangle just yet, so I thought I'd show him the ropes. Seb, have you seen this bird before? That little one over there. No! Come back! There's another one. No, that's a different one.
Okay.
The one
this
that...
one
Not the one to your left that you want to go to. That's a pipit of sorts.
Yeah.
It was a Temminck corsair. It was in there. Can you see it? Let's see. There we go. Got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Goodness, Sebastian. That's why they pay you the big bucks, eh? Here we go.
trained me.
Oh, there we go. So it's a pretty cool little bird, don't you think? He's trying to hide from us. Now, that is a small little bird. They're normally quite gregarious. You'll see them in big groups, called a Temminck corsair. Now, where are your friends? But a little bit nervous of us, surprisingly. You could see how its behavior changed, how it was sort of bending, trying to hide away in the grass. I think it thinks that we have not found it again. It's starting to relax just slightly. Maybe that's why it is so nervous, is because it's on its own. Isn't that cool? Sitting there very quietly. Very nervous. Oh, hang on. Seb, can we have a look to the right? There's some more little birds running with long... They look like they've got... There we go. They're just on the right and they're flapping away. Oh, there we go. There's its mates. That makes a little bit more sense. Look at that. Oh, those are beautiful. That looks like a juvenile.
This one?
Yeah. Don't you think? Yeah, because it's got the same little band, but you see how it's got very mottled plumage. So that must be a young Temminck's courser, and obviously running around mom and dad. Oh, that's so precious. I've never seen a juvenile before. I wouldn't have even expected that they looked like that. You can see the adults making sure that it does not fall behind and keeping up with it. Oh, that's so cool. Just starting to get the little pale breasts now too. Are you a juvenile? Yeah, or are you a female? Hang on, wait. Hang on. Let me get the bird app out now, Sebastian. I may have confused myself. I was just going to say, maybe it's a female. I apologize. Let's go to courses. So that starts with a C. Let me have a very quick look. And Temminck's. It was pretty quick that I found it. Let's see if they've got a picture of a female here. No, it is a juvenile. It is the juvenile. The adults all look the same. I was about to say, because I never noticed before the difference, the sexual dimorphism between the male and the female. So that is indeed a juvenile with the mottled plumage like that, and that sort of red buffy breast. Very cool. Okay, wait, let's carry on. Thanks, birds. It's nice. I love seeing them. They're really funny to watch. And when you see them in really big groups as well, it's quite entertaining. And we're still out here on the open plains. There's lots of things going on. Egyptian gooses, running Thompson's gazelles, everything is keeping away from us today, Sebastian. I don't know what we did, but the animals are not enjoying us. A little bit bumpy around here on this road. Oh, what's going on? What are those two doing? No. I was just watching the antelope. They start running, and then as soon as I mention that they're doing something out of the ordinary, they just stop and stand still as if to say, no, we weren't doing anything. We did nothing. We're just being gazelle. That's all. Okay, let's go. We're not far away from the section of the river that I want to get to. It's quite nice. It's quite thick though, Seb, but you'll see it's very different. Not quite foresty, duck and dive under trees. We don't get to do duck and diving under trees very often here. Lots of bee eaters. So we might see some really nice birds out there this morning. I know a lot of you wanted to do some birding. Sparkles, you're wondering how common are the white storks in the Mara? I haven't seen any yet. I actually haven't seen a white stork for a very long time. I think the last time I saw them was probably in Zambia, and then prior to that, the Eastern Cape of South Africa, so on the southeast coast. So I actually haven't seen a white stork for a very, very long time. We see the yellow-billed. The yellow-billed storks are very common around here as well, and the woolly-necked storks and the saddle-billed storks. What else? What other storks are very common that I've seen? Those are the ones that you see the most. We'll have a look. We're just going to keep an eye out for them, I suppose. Hosmer and Sparkles. Now, where are the lions? Because there's a pride of lions that like around there. I mustn't go there, because that goes to someone's house. There's another balloon takeoff area down this way. We've just got to move away from the river just a little bit, and then we'll head back down that space. Now, the last time that I came came into this area, it was actually a bit dismal. There was not an animal in sight. There was not a topi, there was not a Thompson's gazelle, and I think because of all the rain that we've had now, let's just stop and have a look, although it doesn't really do it much justice. But if we just sort of scan around here, you'll see all the nice green grass starting to push through, and then the plains game are just starting to come back again. So there's a couple of zebra. You'll see the little spot. You can see them walking across the screen in the very, very, very far distance. Those are all zebra, the odd Thompson's gazelle. So hopefully with the return of the animals on this plain, we're going to see some predators coming by, and this is the perfect, absolute perfect area for cheetah. And what's also nice is that the grass is so short. We can't off-road here, unfortunately. It's just the base of the escarpment, but that's okay. You can see for days with the grass being so short at the moment, but it is lovely, don't you think? No, they're the clouds. I feel like I lied to you, and I said to you there wasn't a cloud in the sky, and that's probably because I didn't turn my head around, but there are definitely some forming. But it's amazing how localized the weather is out here. So just on the other side of the escarpment, you'll probably find there's a completely different weather system building. It looks like it, doesn't it? Because there's a thick layer of clouds behind us. Perhaps that's the weather pushing in from Lake Victoria. Maybe. Big clouds building. But it's not very... well, I haven't seen any rain during the day just yet. It seems to be either late afternoon and then right through till the evening. Ooh. a good one. Heather, you're wondering what has been my favorite discovery in the Mara so far? That serval are really brave. I think that's probably the thing that surprised me the most. There's a couple of things. So the serval being the one thing, as for a cat that is so small that will challenge, animals like hyenas. I just couldn't believe that, or at least just not say no. I mean, we watch cheetah run away, and then a serval that's a fifth of the size of a cheetah standing its ground and going, I will eat off this carcass and I don't care what your opinion is, hyena. So that's pretty amazing. Oh, excuse me, I had a rogue hiccup there. Make sure that there's no more coming. And then there's some Thompson's gazelle that are bounding about. The male is chasing the girls around. It's quite funny. And the other thing that I found quite amazing, Heather, is the fact that the lionesses out here mark and defend territories. But I won't get too much into that. So you should watch this lovely lass pronk about. Tristan has found something with spots.
Right, so unfortunately, as you can see, we didn't get the wild dogs, but we managed to find them. Cub. We came towards Tree and they were just moving slowly from there. And they the tracks around us. Must have quite large front. Much higher up as we've left the dam, and we can get to see the two of them, which is really cool. Now I wonder if maybe Hosanna didn't find them until it's really going to be interesting to find out what. Now I do apologize if there is a bit of breakup in the transmission. We are right on the edge of the a little bit, and we might try and follow them and see if we can keep up with them, and hopefully the signal will improve as we move north, but at least how the little is, you can see the answer to the fine. So it's like we're going slowly up a hill. There we go, the little one is just stopped.
Okay, guys. Well, it seems like Tristan's having a few gremlins this morning, but we've got a bird that might be a new bird for a lot of our Mara birders. Yeah, a very distinct call. It is a red-winged Francolin. And we actually have a little bit of a tussle going on at the moment. The male who's calling is slowly pushing another male away from him. Oh, but now the other male is coming in. Sometimes these Francolin battles can be very fierce. Maybe they're stalking towards each other through the grass. Are we going to see a titanic feathered tussle? Or one just run from the other? Very close to each other now. Sort of sizing each other up. No. It looks like they've decided they're of equal size and equal strength. So maybe a tussle's not the best option. Hi, Chris. Chris is wondering, what is Kenya's national bird? If I remember correctly, Chris, it is the lilac-breasted roller. I'm pretty sure it's the lilac-breasted roller. I know Uganda is the crowned crane. I'm pretty sure Kenya, along with quite a few other African countries, is the lilac-breasted roller. Botswana is also lilac-breasted roller. I'm trying to... Yes, I'm almost 100% sure it's the lilac-breasted roller. Okay, well, let's leave our red-winged Francolins to continue their standoff. Now, we're heading into the area that the main sausage tree pride really like. Now, up ahead, there's a whole bunch of really great shady trees. So, you got some beautiful, beautiful gardenias. There's a big sausage tree as well. And I think that's where the confusion comes, that there are two sausage tree prides, because both of them like to lie under sausage trees, just different sausage trees. Maybe we should call them sausage south and sausage north. Oh, we're going to have to think about that. Well, oh dear, I've managed to catch everything in my scarf. There we go. Now, the other reason I'm coming down into this area is that the female cheetah, who's only got 2 cubs left, sometimes meanders out of the black hole of no signal into this area around here, but a bit further down. Well, nothing under the gardenias so far, so we're going to keep heading towards the very big sausage tree over there. While we do that, let's see where Scotty D's safari is.
Well, I'm glad Brent has worked out what his plan is for the morning, and therefore it has helped me make mine. I've decided to stick along the river as opposed to him being up kind of along the higher escarpment road. And I'm thinking of possibly trying to spend some time at some of the crossing points where there's been some action recently. And the river cameras, of course, do a great job, Jumbo, at getting us some incredible views, but I think it would be useful to have a vehicle at some of the crossings if it is at all possible. It would of course also be very enjoyable for us to witness one of these crossings. And in the flesh, we haven't really been spending too much time at the crossing points because of course the cameras are there. Thankfully one of them is dirty. I think an animal ran into it and smeared some mud over the one lens, and we haven't had time to clean it just yet. So that's also a good reason why it may be worth hanging around there. There's also a third reason, or fourth, or however many reasons I've given you, but there's a pride of lions called the Paradise Pride that spends a lot of time around these crossing points, and we found that we've got reports that often our cameras capture the crossing magically, but then as soon as the animals disappear up and out the river, there's often a lion waiting that wallops them. But of course our cameras are a little bit low to capture that, so who knows, maybe we'll be able to cash in on the lioness capitalizing on those crossing points. So that's kind of the initial plan. We're not far from those crossing points, and once we've driven past we'll know if there's any animals queuing up. Hello, Philip. You would like to know if anything out here has ever made me physically wince. And I've had a few kind of nervous moments, I guess, and smelly moments, but probably the most hair-raising moments that caused me to wince would have been when I actually had an elephant bull right next to the side of the car, and he was a monster, and about 10 or 15 minutes before he came to the side of the car, he came to the front of the car and kind of lifted it up with his his tusks. Not very high, but then he moved off and we moved off and we bumped into him a bit later, about 15-20 minutes later, and then he came up to the side of the car and he had both of his tusks against, well, one was against the door, his right tusk, and his left tusk was kind of just behind my door. Ended up putting my hand onto his tusk as a reflex and kind of pushing away. Of course, you can't push an elephant away from you, but he did move off. There's a video of it somewhere. You should be able to find it. It was with Safari Live. Some of you will probably remember that sighting. Dave was on camera and he was new to the job, so he was terrified, as was I. Basically, when the elephant came up to the side here, he didn't want to move the camera at all, so you can't see my hand going onto the elephant's tusk, but it did happen. He had been mud wallowing before I did that, so my hand was covered in mud, because so was he. Alrighty. So, like I say, the river crossings where our cameras aren't too far away. In the next few hundred meters we will be in position, and hopefully we'll have some positive updates there of some animals beginning to mass and think about crossing into the Mara Triangle from the Mara Reserve. You guys are going to be now heading off to a leopard who I've spent a lot of time with and would love to be spending some time with her now, so why don't you go see who it is, and she might have a little cub tagging along.
She does indeed. Here you can see Shadow's cub is now perched up on the tree, and we've had to do some very innovative maneuvering in order to be able to show you guys Shadow and cub. So I don't know how much you saw of her just now when we were with you, but the gremlins are in full force where we are, and so Liam and I have had to position ourselves on top of a termite mound quite far away just to be able to actually see them and to be able to get some sort of view. We've also had to use a coffee mug to get the aerial straighter, and so Liam's pulling out all the tricks just for us to be able to spend some time. The good news is that these two, I was saying that they're full and fat, they have got a kill. So they have got what looks like quite a large carcass. I can't see what it is. It's inside there where Shadow is. It looks maybe like a fully grown impala. When she picked it up, it was quite large, and the interesting thing about it is that it was in a tree at one point, so she's taken it down out of a tree to feed on it, and hopefully she'll take it back again. Now I don't know where she's off to. She's busy kind of looking around, but it's great news for us because there's enough meat there definitely that Shadow will be here over the next day. Now she just seems to be looking around and calling. Now she does get a little bit grumpy with her cubs sometimes around food. We saw it the last time we had them on a kill, that she was growling and hissing at her cub and telling her cub, no, you can't go to the food until I'm finished. But the cub is, you see, watching. The cub is just watching the mother and waiting for mom to move off so it can go and get a little food. Although both of them are so full at the moment that I think they're just going to try and find a place to rest. Okay, we haven't named the cub yet because the cub is not a year old. So the cubs generally only get a name at about a year old, and this little cub at the moment is only about 10 months old is where we are now. It was born in around New Year's in January, and so it is a fairly young cub still, and so it hasn't gotten a name yet because it hasn't lived for a year. Normally we name them around a year old. But it's interesting behavior from Shadow. She seems to be very up and down. She's not sitting for long periods. I thought when they got back to the carcass that she would just lie down and rest, but she's back and forth, and I wonder if maybe she hasn't spotted something else that's piquing her interest, because she's now moving back down towards Treehouse Dam, and I would have thought that she would have stayed very much. There we go, she's now settled in a bit of shade, which is really good news. So she's settled there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the little cub comes bounding down from the tree and goes and joins mom. They were walking together earlier, and there was a little bit of grooming, and they were playing a bit, and so maybe she's either going to go down to the carcass or maybe back to mom itself. I don't think she's going to end up lying out where she is now, but just because it's a little bit on the warm side where that is, it's not going to be the most pleasant place for a little cub to spend too much time. But it's getting cuter and cuter by the day, and it's also grown a lot. In the last few months, it's grown quite a bit, so it's really good to see that it's getting bigger and stronger by the day, and Shadow's doing wonderfully well to keep it alive. Now, a lot of you are very excited to see the little cub and see that it is so healthy and doing well. Well, that's exactly it, and it's amazing because I've seen lots of comments where everybody thinks that the cub is gone because we don't see it for 3-4 weeks, but that's just the nature of Shadow and the way that she is. She's very seldom do we see her for extended periods of time and every single day. It was only when she had Sindile that we were seeing Sindile regularly. But with this cub, she's spent a lot of time off our southern boundary, and she kind of sneaks into the southwestern corner. And because over the last little bit we have been battling with our Gari repeater after that lightning storm, we haven't been checking much of the southwest because at the end of the day we can't really get to it with reception and things. So she is around. It's just they are more secretive, and she's a harder animal to find than some of the others. Olga, the reason why the cubs get a naming process after a year is just because at the end of the day, a year-old generally signifies to us or to that these animals are starting to get to an age where they can survive. And there's no point in naming cubs if they're going to be killed, and particularly in Shadow's case, because she's had, I don't even know how many litters now, and we would have named a number of cubs that wouldn't have actually survived. So it's more about the fact that at a year-old, generally they will survive and they will be okay, and that's why they get their name at the 1 year mark, and why we end up with a situation that we start to kind of give them an ID at that point. So Proud Cat Mama, the names are given by generally the rangers in the area. There's a rangers meeting that will take place, and they'll just have ideas. There you go, the two of them are going to sit and groom one another. And so that's normally what will be used in order to try and facilitate or to get a name out. Generally preference is given to those guys where she was born. So in this case it would be the Arethusa Rangers, because this little cub was born on Arethusa, so they would get first preference, and then it would just be discussed. If there's a situation where the name is not really great and the other guys don't agree, then they'll just discuss it and come up with a different name. So that's normally how it works, is where it's born is those rangers in that particular property have first preference in terms of naming it. And that's why Tax and Aubrey got to name Hosanna and Shongile, and it's why all of Karula's offsprings have been named by the Djuma guides as opposed to other people. So that's basically the process. It's just more a respect thing than anything else. Now, I was saying earlier that the meat was this carcass was up in a tree. Now, Viam actually spotted it earlier, but just to my left, there is a big piece of meat just dangling from a branch. Now, you can see we're at quite an extreme angle here. We're pointing about 45 degrees downwards on top of a termite mound just to try and get that aerial up a bit. But on my left-hand side is a really nice big marula, and there's the piece of meat that I was talking about that is dangling from the branch. So that would have meant that this carcass was up in this marula tree, and while they were feeding they dropped that piece and it then dangled there, and she's brought it down and put it underneath some shade, probably because it's not very easy to be able to eat in this tree, and maybe she'll take it up a little bit later when it gets cooler and the hyenas start to get active. Now, talking about scavengers and why these leopards put their carcass in a tree, I believe Tayla McCurdy has got some of those scavengers that we were just mentioning that are roaming about and scavenging off some sort of food item.
Across a small clan of hyena. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I can't talk. I did not sleep very well last night, so I'm struggling to get the words out. But what's quite interesting is that there's a hyena. Where did she go, Seb? Didn't you see it? Did she disappear into the lugger? We're just having a look. I want to show you. There's a hyena here that's got a collar on, which is really cool. But I think she's laid down in a bit of mud or something. But it's okay. It's not a particularly big clan, but the rest could still be out and about. And we did see 4 of them. We're really on the edge of the Mara River. What's got this one's attention? Oh, they're staring. I'm just going to try and look around. Oh, are they looking at the buffalo? I think there's a death stare happening between a hyena and a buffalo right now. Hyena, you're going to fall short, I'm afraid. That is a big buffalo bull, and I saw him moving around. He doesn't look particularly, or he doesn't look like he's got an injury of any sorts, and we know how big and strong and tough the buffalo are over here. So you better just stay over there and keep away. But hyenas are incredibly intelligent creatures, and I don't think that they would unnecessarily harass a fully grown buffalo bull for no apparent reason. Look how pretty that is. Can you see the reflection of the water just moving around on the hyena's coat? That's actually quite lovely. Oh, listen to the frogs. Just started chirping all of a sudden. That's so beautiful. So that's where those frogs are going to be, is they're going to be exactly where these hyenas are laying. Probably a bit further out. Does it have a bite on its face? Did you see the blood on the side of the left cheek? That one that you are on now? Oh. Or maybe they've been feeding on something. I just saw quite a bit of blood. When you can't see it now because it's just in the shadows, but when it turns its head slightly to the right, look along its jaw. And it looks like there's a bit of blood. So I don't know if it's maybe... No, they all look like they've got blood on them, on their necks. I think they've obviously been feeding on something, and which would also explain why they want to come and cool down now. You see that? Look at all the blood, all the way down their neck, all the way down their front legs. And hyenas will do that. They'll completely... Well, they'll just like get inside the carcass and start feeding on it. A couple of Thompson's gazelles are just behind them. You can just see they're not bothered by those hyenas at all. Okay, so they've obviously got themselves a meal last night. They've fed until their bellies couldn't take any more. They're hot now, and they're going to lay amongst all the amphibians in this sort of marshy wetland that we've got over here. You're going to have to clean yourself up, hyena. You're covered in blood. Now that's good to see. Very, very nice. Shall we have a look at what the Mara River looks like? I'm going to just go up a little bit further forward, and then we should get a nice gap. Buffalo, off we go. Hyenas are actually a bit nervous of that buffalo, which is quite funny. Maybe they just leave each other alone. And the buffalo won't particularly bother a hyena unnecessarily. Oh, there's more hang on, what's going on down here? Maybe this is where they've been feeding. Let's see. There we go. That explains it. We have solved the mystery. There is a dead is it a dead buffalo or a hippo? We'll have to have a closer look. It's the hippopotamus. Oh, I'm very sorry, Mr. Hippo. Your life, unfortunately, has come to an end, but you are feeding one of nature's most intelligent creatures, so that's all good. So there we go. Now we know where the hyenas have come from, and that's probably what the hyena was staring at. Perhaps they were talking to one another. We just couldn't hear it. Okay, bye, Felicia. Off it goes. I'm not hanging around in the carcass at all. Now, that is going to be a great meal for a number of different creatures, but if there is a clan of hyenas living around here, they're going to take full advantage of it, and they will feast upon it until there is nothing left. I don't know how long this hippo has been here for. It doesn't look like it's been completely devoured by anything. Maybe this only happened last night. The vultures most certainly would have come in, and then you would have seen lots of feces on top of that carcass, because the vultures will just sit on top of it and use it as a roost as well when they're taking a break in and amongst feeding. Something's been feeding on is that the head, do you think, Sid? Looks like it. I think it's like the jaw and the head around there. Very sad. It looks like a big hippo. I'm going to say that that's a bull. So, a casualty of a hippo bull, it could be natural causes. Maybe it's just, it probably is just natural causes. Old age, maybe he just reached the end of his lifespan. Perhaps he had an argument with another younger, fitter, stronger bull. Maybe he's a young bull and he got a hiding, and unfortunately did not make it out of that. Hippo deaths are actually quite common. I've seen many hippo floating around and about. Okay, that's very cool though. So we must remember this, because I think this could be quite exciting over the next couple of days as this hippo is, eaten by lots of different animals. Rebecca, you said that you see a lot of dead hippo. We do indeed, and it's just because the Mara River, where you can hear it raging. And the Mara River, it's a hard life out here. There's a lot of competition in the river itself, especially for big pods of hippos. So, and that's why I was telling you the other day that you'll find some of these younger hippos will actually take up residence in the luggers that fill up of water. So you might find that's a bit more peaceful and life's a little bit more on the placid side. There's also some Seb right in that corner where you are now, sort of where the big trees are, not the one on the right, a little bit further to the left. I can just see some birds. If you zoom in to those trees, just at the base, I can see a bird, a white bird. Let's see what it is. Sorry, there we go. Oh, it is who have we got? We got a yellow-billed stork. There we go. We were talking about storks earlier. So here's the stork that we see most often about fishing. in the Mara River, and I'm quite surprised as to how relaxed the birds actually are. Now, it is fairly fast-moving water, so you're probably not going to find too many hippos hanging around here. All the books say that they don't like fast-moving water, but I've also seen the hippos in, well, treacherous water. And there's one actually just down below. Can you see it just in the middle? It's going down and under. It's okay, I'm just pointing out that there was one there. And the crocodiles, the amount of young crocodiles you see on the banks of the river, you would think that a bird would be something that they'd be going for. Or, you know, they obviously like to feed on fish, but when you have a feeding frenzy, sometimes the big crocs just push you out of the way and you can't tear off a chunk of flesh or death roll and put it off, which is a bit of a problem. So if I was a young crocodile, I'd just be sneaking up to birds all the time and snatching them. But we're going to go across to Brent now. He has got a ferocious predator, but for the moment, taking a snooze.
Welcome. Well, one tick on our mission for today. We've found the big sausages a little bit further southwest from where we found them last. And there's a lot of animals around. You can see there's a big herd of buffalo not too far in the distance. But these girls have been focused on some zebra that were heading in this general direction. And they seem to have veered off slightly. And they look, well, not starving, but definitely if something happened upon them, they would have a dabble. So 2 young males, 1 young female, 3 adult lionesses, and 1 big boy who's flat as anything. There you can see the zebras in the distance there. I really, really do like this pride. And I've been quite lucky with them. Whenever I've gone to look for them, I seem to be able to find them. Oh, he's on her way to the rest of the girls to say howdy doody. There we go. We could get a little bit of grooming, maybe even a bit of playing. It is still quite cool. Now, Philip says, is it not one of the sausage prides called Salt Lake Pride? I'm not sure. I'm trying to see if I can see the kinky-tailed female who's got a kink in her tail. Now, see, the problem with it is that, I mean, they could be, but then they've got multiple male coalitions, which is unusual. And when I've seen 6 females together at the Salt Lake with no young males, but there's always 2 young males with this, and that's the really fascinating thing is we're going to learn. Oh, there's another lion there. So I thought we might be missing a lioness, but we're not. He's already in the shade. Over there, I didn't even see her earlier. So that puts us at 4 adult lionesses, 2 young males, 1 young female, and 1 big boy. Now, he is definitely one of my favorite male lions that I spend time with in the Mara. He's got that very distinct scar on his face. Let me just go forward so we can have a good look at him. Randomness is saying, is that an unusual mix of lions? Not at all. Quite common, and quite often you'll... Let me forward a little bit more. How's that, Craig? Quite often you will find the prides without males. Now, the males have to go off and do their defending of their territory. Now, he does quite a lot. That's why I like him. He's quite an aggressive male. So if we have a closer look at his face, he's got a very distinct scar through his nose. And at the moment, he's got a relatively fresh wound above his eye. And you can actually see the flies in the wound at the moment. must be very irritating. But there you go, see that big cut scar straight through his schnoz. It must have been very painful when it happened, but you can see it's fully healed now. Now, we've seen him fighting and chasing other lions quite regularly. He seems to have a great disdain for other male lions within his territory. You would like to know how big that male lion is. Well, he's probably around 210 kilograms, so over 400 pounds. And he doesn't have the biggest mane, but he has got a very big body. Now, see, the one reason why I think it could be a different pride from the Salt Lick, because we are far. We're more than 7 or 8 k's from the Salt Lick. Oh, one of the little boys is up. Hello. Oh, young male lions are so pretty. Have a rough night, mister. And having a quick look at Craig as he passes right next to the car. Denise is wondering why they're called the sausages. They're actually called, well, there's a bit of confusion, the sausage tree pride. And that's because they're quite often found under very big sausage trees, having a snooze in the shade as it gets warmer. Now, we went and checked one of their favorite sausage trees, actually. Let's just move around a little bit here for you, Craig. And who knows, they might be heading towards that exact sausage tree. So, directly behind this lioness here, there, that is actually, well, it's quite far away, but it is a very big sausage tree that they quite often found resting under. There it is. So, that's, and you can actually see some of the sausages hanging. But we're going to spend a little bit more time hanging out with this pride of lions, but if they decide to get really, really flat and not move, I think we're going to keep on and try and get our second tick and look for that female cheetah with cubs. But while we do that, let's go to Tristan with a different spotted cat and her cub.
Well, indeed, and our cats are also just resting. I don't think they're going to get up to too much now that they've had a bit of a feed. It's getting hotter by the minute, and so I think we're going to see a situation where Shadow and Cub are going to start sleeping. So we'll probably also spend a little bit longer with them and just watch them. We also don't have the opportunity to move around, and so it means our view is quite obstructed by a number of different trees, and so at least it's a view nonetheless. Like I say, better to have a small view than no view whatsoever. So Heather, the cubs will stay with their mother generally for about 14 months to 2 years. That's an average kind of figure. It obviously depends on the individual cubs, and it depends on the mother as well as to how long she tolerates the cubs for. But generally we find between that sort of phase of their life, they get pushed out by their mothers. If you look at Tumba, he was being pushed out at about 15 months, 16 months old, whereas, Hasana and Shongile, unfortunately, they were left at about a year old. So it's generally about 14 months to 2 years, but obviously there are outlying extremes on either side, and the reason why they have to stay for that amount of time is because they've got to develop. If you look at Shadow and you see the size of her there, and then you look at the size of the cub in comparison, the cub is tiny compared to Shadow, and she is quite small even for her age, so she's a lot smaller than I would have expected at this age. Although if you look at Shongile, she was also a tiny little female and only really started to catch up to Hasana once she went over a year old. But they have to grow and they have to develop and they have to learn, and so they have to spend time with their mother and learn how they need to move around, how they have to hunt, how do they keep safe, and that takes quite some time. They've also got to develop physically enough to be able to bring down food items and find food items, and so that takes a while, and that's why they end up staying with their mother for as long as they do. You can see Shadow, she's just looking around, a bit of panting going on, and so that panting will all be just the same as what we saw with Hasana yesterday with the big swollen stomach. They need to be able to kind of take shorter breaths, and therefore you'll see them breathing quite rapidly. And then on top of that is also she's probably quite hot. Like I say, this morning is very warm, and so it means that in all likelihood they are going to get quite hot quite quickly. Now the little cub is just there in front, is looking back towards mom at the moment. You can just see its little face peeking out from behind all of those bushes. It's not easy to see, but it is there amongst all the sticks. You can see it's also breathing quite rapidly as well. Ali, Shadow's cub, is very comfortable around vehicles. It's still a little bit kind of wary and watchful, and I think if Shadow wasn't here, wouldn't be nearly as calm around us as what it is when Shadow is here. But it is most definitely getting better, that's for sure. I mean, you can see with 3 vehicles in the sighting, and she's not running away, she's not slinking, she's not ducking down and hiding. You know, she's fairly kind of sort of relaxed and really not too phased about things. There she goes back towards mom, so she's not in a scared phase anymore, and she's probably going to get used to these vehicles more and more and more. And the best thing about this is the more we can find her on kills like this, and the more we can spend time in these areas and you know, monitor them and kind of keep the vehicles kind of rotating through, the more this cub is going to get used to it and learn from its mom that the vehicles are not something to worry about, and that she'll get more and more relaxed. But yes, she is a lot better than what she was 3 months ago. Even 3 months ago, she was a lot more skittish and shy, whereas now this little one seems to kind of, you know, be alright with the vehicles. It still won't walk past a vehicle. So when we were following this cat towards this kill, we found that she would do quite a big loop around us as opposed to Shadow walking right past us. But she's getting there. I found when it's just one vehicle, she's okay. When I followed her a few weeks ago from a kill and it was just myself, she was actually okay. She walked past the vehicle a few times and wasn't too bad, but as soon as there's more than one vehicle, she doesn't walk past the vehicle at all. You can see Shadow's coming back towards this carcass. I wonder if she wants to just try and put it somewhere else and stash it somewhere better. It's almost impossible to see from where we are at the moment, so she doesn't really need to move it. Maybe she's feeling a little bit hungry and that's why she's going to head in that direction. But there we go. You can see that's the carcass she's feeding off. Now whatever it is, it's large. If you look at the size of Shadow in comparison to that rib cage, it is not a small animal that she's killed. I have no idea what it is. I can't see nicely. There's so much glare between where I am and her. We're staring directly into the sun at the moment, so I'm really battling to try and figure out what it is. It's also been fed on so much that there's really not too much in the way of indications of what it is. Mobile Ali is asking if Karula's absence has allowed Shadow to be successful. Well, I suppose you mean in terms of cubs, because she's been a successful leopard in that she's already approaching 11 years old. But in terms of as a mother, no, not really. It's more a situation that Tingana and Anderson have provided some stability in terms of male leopards within the area. So you've got a situation where Tingana has become... Is it a nyala? It is. It's a big male nyala that she's killed. Look at the size of those horns. So that is a really massive meal. And so if you thought that Shadow had a bad limp and was struggling to kill a big male nyala is serious effort. So she's done very well to do that. But getting back to her motherhood, it's more that Tingana and Anderson have set up territories. They've been very stable over this period. There hasn't been too many transient males moving around, and the two of them have really defended the area quite well, and that meant that Shadow has finally had some sort of stability when it's come to males within the area, and has had a situation where she's been right in the center of a male's territory. If you think where we are now, we're in the center of Tingana's territory. Tingana roams all the way around us, and Anderson doesn't push into this area at all, and even if he did, she did mate with Anderson, and so both those males know her as an individual that they mated with, and they see this cub as their own. So that's been one part of it. The other side of it is that the hyena presence that we've seen in Shadow's territory has diminished over the last little bit. So she doesn't have the same problems with hyenas that she had in the beginning when she first kind of had cubs, and there was a lot more hyenas. And I do apologize for if the camera shakes a little bit. We are on this steep hill, and every now and then the vehicle just loses its grip and just rolls slightly forward. But the hyena presence is far less than what we had earlier. In earlier years, we don't see nearly as many as what we used to, and so that's been a help. And so those are probably the two biggest factors, more than the disappearance of Karula. I mean, that's not really changed where Shadow had these cubs. Shadow had these cubs in the exact same place she's always had them, which is on Arethusa. She's not changed her kind of den site area. She's moved a little bit more into Vuatella, but other than that, really not much has changed. She's still kind of kept this cub in the same areas that she's always kept cubs, and it's just more a fact that the males have been so settled and in the last few months, and that's allowed her to grow and to raise this cub without having to deal with other male leopards. Now it seems as though she's going to come out towards us, which is fantastic. So if she does come this way, it's going to be much better. She sees she's eyeing out this tree. I wonder if maybe she didn't have another kill here or something, because that Nyala is massive, and I don't think Shadow, even as powerful as she is, could lift that male Nyala into a tree prior to it being well fed upon. So I think it's a situation that maybe she had a different carcass here, or this is another piece of meat. Maybe the cub picked up this little piece and took it up onto that tree, but that's definitely this Nyala I don't think has been in a tree itself. That's a massive food item, and even male leopards would struggle to pull a fully grown male Nyala up into a tree. So I don't think that Shadow's taken it up. I think it's maybe the cub just taken a piece and played with it in this particular tree. Leo, you're asking if Karula's cubs resemble her at all. Yes, they do. I see Karula in Shongile quite heavy. I see quite a strong resemblance in Shongile. Hosana's got a few little moments where he kind of looks a bit like Karula, but I find the girls look like her. I mean, Shadow and Tandi also have very similar faces to what Karula did, so they are quite similar in that regard. And look, these two are going to have a nice little game now, so it's really cool to see the two of them. But Shongile, definitely. Shongile looks a lot like Karula. The last time I saw her, she had that same kind of look and was very similar. And there's a little cub. Are you going to come and investigate the carcass as well? Now, I believe that the picture is freezing every now and then. I do apologize about it. Like I say, we are on top of a termite mound. We're at a 45-degree angle to try and keep this picture going and to try and keep the sighting going. And the car every now and then jerks forward as we kind of move down the hill because it's not holding its grip. And that means we have a situation where we just lose the picture every now and then. So I do apologize about it, and hopefully we'll be able to settle down eventually and the picture will get better. But at least it's views of Shadow and Cup. It's better than no views. And VM and I drove around in circles and laps for quite some time trying to get some sort of signal, and so we spotted this termite mound not too far away and thought we would just reverse our bum up it and try and see if our area will be high enough then to pick up from with Tayla, which it seems to be somewhat working. So hopefully that situation will settle down and everything will be okay. Here we go, there goes a little one. Well, it's very nice of you to come out into the open for us. Right, now I believe our picture is breaking up quite a bit, so while we sit here and try and figure out if maybe we can get a better angle, let's go back to Brent Leo Smith, who I think has also got some scavengers much like Tayla McCurdy had, and I wonder if there's a carcass there.
Herd of buffalo that's been inadvertently moving closer and closer to them. Oh, look how close she is, Craig. She's right next to us. And she's watching Craig really carefully. Now, it looks like we might have a potential hunt on the go here. I'm just going to move the car and the buffalo all behind us. Oh wait, she's too close. She's stopped in the shade right next to us. We just can't see her now, so I can't actually move the car. I don't know if you're going to get her here, Craig. She's just behind the pole there in the shade watching the buffalo. Now, two of the adult lionesses are up as the buffalo move closer and closer. And one of the young males is sort of watching. Okay, second lioness is up on the move. Now, we know Tristan said we're going to hyenas. Unfortunately, no hyenas yet, but maybe if they catch a buffalo, the hyenas might come. The one lioness is too close for me to move the car. The buffalo are heading in this direction. They might get a very nasty surprise. There are a lot of teeth and claws in this pride. And the added benefit of one of the big males being around, which makes buffalo hunting a little bit easier. The last time I left this pride in the middle of the day, at about 11:30, they were flat under a Balanites tree, and I told Jamie where they were, and she went there that afternoon, and they had managed to catch buffalo in between drives. So this pride does hunt buffalo. And so far, only 2 members of the pride are focused on the buffalo. The rest are very flat cats in the shade. Okay, I'm going to try and move very slowly with this girl next to us, Craig. Okay, well, I'll get ourselves in the best position for a potential buffalo hunt. Let's go across to Tristan with another gorgeous view of a gorgeous leopard.
We do indeed. So we've managed to reposition, and for some reason our signal's pretty good, and so we've got a beautiful view of Shadow's little cub as it's watching around and looking around and kind of taking in its environment quite a bit. It's obviously panting quite heavily, but it's still sitting on its tree and watching, and I think it's going to decide to lie there. But it's really good to see this little one and get such nice close-up encounters with it. It's kind of on its own little mission. Now, where are you off to? You can see it still kind of gets a little bit nervous of things. No, into the shade it goes and is going to now sleep in the long grass. Shadow herself is completely fast asleep. She's not worried at all, but the little cub is now found itself a good little spot. Delriz, a mother leopard, will do everything she can to keep her cub alive, but it's the end of the day. If it comes down to her or the cub, and in terms of lions, she'll try and defend it as much as she can, but it'll get to a point where she can't do much more, and if the lions have gotten hold of the cub, then she'll just disappear and run away from it. There's no point in her dying as well. But if there's a situation where she can still defend the cub and still get somewhere close to it and try and distract the lion's attention, she will most certainly do that. She will do everything she can to keep her cubs alive. So it's an amazing thing to watch leopards and any actually cat. When they become mothers, they become so defensive of these little ones, and they make sure that they keep them as safe as possible as much as they can. Now, obviously there are times where, you know, leopards and hyenas and lions get to all of these offspring, but mothers will certainly do their very best to try and keep their little ones safe. But if lions come in and there's no chance to get between the lions and the cub, she will then just abandon and off she'll go, because at the end of the day it makes no sense for her to have a suicide mission and die when she can have more offspring later. Austin, you're asking if there's a season that is better for raising leopard cubs? Well, no, and that's why leopards are, and any cat actually, will produce cubs at any time of the year. They're not animals that will coincide with seasons. It obviously becomes a little easier for the mother in the winter months because, well, they can find food a little bit easier. Generally, food is a bit weaker, and so the success rates are higher. But in summer, it's great when they have small cubs because there's a lot of vegetation and they can hide their cubs really well. So all seasons have their own sort of advantages and allow for different things. And like I say, that's why leopards will have their cubs at any time of the year. They're not like antelope that need certain food requirements at certain times in order to provide nutrients for their offspring. So it's interesting just to see how it kind of is different between them and the cats. Right, now that our leopards have settled down and decided that they're going to sleep for the day, I think we're going to carry on and try and see what else we can find. But I believe Taylor McCurdy has found a rather large primate, and hopefully he's going to behave himself.
Morning. I've been actually sitting here for some time because I had to show you all. I remember the other day we were talking about baboons sitting on termite mounds and how we call it a loo with a view, and it was a baboon. He wasn't really sitting on a big one though. It was just a little one warming his bottom, but now this one has decided to climb up quite a high termite mound. I haven't really seen any monster mounds since I've been here, but it is so funny. He's in almost a trance-like state at the moment, and oh, there's a big yawn. Come on, show us those canines. Wow, look at that. Now, I hope that some of you managed to grab a screenshot of that exact moment when he did yawn. Do yourself a favor, zoom right in to that picture and share it with us, #SafariLive, because their canines are longer than lions. And I was just telling Sebastian, I was like, I would take on a male lion any day of the week rather than taking on a baboon that has lost its fear for humans for one of those exact reasons. Firstly, they're incredibly strong, and then also their teeth are absolutely enormous and very sharp too. But he's just sitting there, he's grooming himself, he's looking down every now and then at the termite mound, and I wonder what he's thinking. I'd love to know what's going on in this baboon's mind. He's just keeping an eye out. I'm sure his troop is not too far off, probably just foraging about, and that's a good spot to look out for predators, because there definitely are a number of predators that hang around in this area. We're still right close to the Mara River, so we know there's definitely a chance for leopards, and leopards and baboons don't get on very well. And there'll be lions around too, although I haven't seen too many lions feasting upon monkeys, although that's not to say that it doesn't happen, because it most certainly does. But he's also doing the classic guide yawn, and we've chatted about this a few times, where, you know, you're hosting your guests late at night and you're exhausted, but you don't want to be seen to be rude, so you sort of half swallow your yawns. He's done a few of those too. He actually does it very well. I'm impressed. He's obviously sat up entertaining people quite late at night a few times. But this is the sun, though, where if I had to sit here any longer, I'm also going to fall asleep in this lovely warm weather. It's really beautiful. Anna Marie, you've pointed out and you've said that those are scary canines. They are indeed. Like I said, keep away from baboons. I don't know why, but every time you see foreigners coming to our beautiful country, or just Africa in general, the first thing they want to do is run up to these animals, especially when they're slightly on the habituated side, so not so scared of us. I could not think of doing anything worse, running up to a baboon of his size. Now, he's big. He's not a small animal either. And look how flexible he is too. And scratch behind his ear. He must do a lot of yoga. Rebecca was telling me this morning that I need to start doing yoga to help me sleep, and I said all that's going to do is make me more flexible. I don't know if yoga would make me sleep. Look at him. He is so immaculate as well. You watch him, and we've been watching him for a whole time. He was even looking at his nails as if to see, oh, there's a bit of dirt underneath them. I need to get the scrubbing brush out. But, you know, going through his coat very, very finely, making sure that there is not a parasite on him. I think baboons and vervet monkeys would be very clean. I don't think they'd particularly have lots of parasites on them, like what we sort of see with zebra. Well, firstly, though, they've got hands and they can groom themselves really well, but also they spend quite a bit of time grooming one another. So in terms of maybe touching a wild baboon or something, I think I'd probably touch one of them rather than an eland, because I told you stories about how I've received a horrendous reaction from touching a young eland, though, but it was very sick though, so maybe that had something to do with it. But I've never seen a dirty baboon. I don't think. Have you ever seen a dirty baboon before? No. Not unless it's just raided your kitchen and it's perhaps got all sorts of fruit and all sorts of things covering it. But most of the time, they are very, very clean. Now he's watching the zebra go by. Oh God, what a great day this is! Hey, imagine this is your day, right? This morning from 8 or from 7:30 till about 9 o'clock. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to relax, read the paper, watch the animals go by, hear what they all have to say, where they're going. Perhaps the zebra have just shouted out, we're going to go and cross, come and watch us get eaten by the crocodiles. No, I don't think the zebra would have said that. But that's very cool. And also just showing Seb around this area. It's really pretty. It's so nice. I'm impressed with all the animals. Now, proud cat mama, you've requested to know what baboons eat. Baboons eat a variety of different things, so if they can get into your kitchen, they'll quite happily eat anything they can get their hands on. Was another yawn. Turn it up. Look at us. Oh, wow, look at that. You can see how sharp they are. So they'll eat fruit, they will eat flowers, they will eat all the lovely green sprouts of grass that are coming through. They'll eat the new leaves on trees. They'll eat bugs. So they'll eat from the alates, they'll eat termites, they will eat all sorts of different things. And then, of course, something that frightens people is that they're not afraid to grab a small mammal of sorts. So they'll often take young lambs, impala lambs, for example, in South Africa is one of their favorite things. They'll take daycare. Out here, I've even heard stories of them taking livestock, like goats and things like that, too. So sometimes that happens, too. So how's this? Obviously, when you have wildlife coming into areas, when there's domestic animals coming into areas that are predominantly for wildlife, you're bound to have a lion or a leopard or a cheetah or something trying to go after the easiest prey. And I think sometimes the baboons are the culprits, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that they will quite happily just take that just to substitute their diet. Look how he walks, though. Oh my goodness, he means business this morning. He's really got a way about the way that he moves. And he lives around here. We're close to Little Governor's Camp, and this is where I did my hot air balloon safari from, Governor's Balloon Safaris. It was absolutely spectacular. I definitely think they have the best trip, and no wonder this baboon lives around here. Now, Aria, you're wondering where the balloon family is. I was wondering the same thing. I think that they could just be feeding off into the tree line. I think he's come out to just have a scan around, and one of the roles of being a big, strong male baboon in a troop is that you have to protect the entire troop. So he's probably just come out, had a little look around, made sure that there's not too much danger about. And I'm sure, though, he will be a baboon that harasses the lodge, because like any animal, if they learn that there's food that's available that's really easy, that's what they're going to go for. So they might be waiting for breakfast to be prepared in the camp before they try and dash across the dining area and grab the odd sugar bowl or perhaps a fruit or maybe even a muffin or two. Maybe that's why he's not too worried about foraging at the moment, because he knows he's going to go and get something absolutely delicious. But we'll move on from this baboon now, and hopefully we'll find some other creatures. I'm still on my search for leopards along the Mara River. Brent is still with the sausage tree pride. I wonder if they've awoken from their slumber.